Good morning. We are going to get back to work after taking a break here. So what are we going to work on? I think we're going to be working on improving the exports for normal maps for Harmony and emissive maps. I'm going to do that. We're going to hook up Fatsack's character here in order to actually do that. And we're also going to take a stab at improving a lot of this stuff with our Harmony export. Hopefully remove a few janky steps and deal with some of those problems if we can. Make things better. Let's make sure streaming's actually working properly. Alright, so let's get to work here. So one of the things we want to do is we want to add support for emissive maps and for normal maps to be created inside of Harmony and to be exported. And right now we've got it so we've got our animations and all this sorts of stuff going on, and we're going to want the normals exported for these things, and we want to change all that so it actually works. So let's get cracking on it. All right. So we're going to want the bar G normal display tag. Welcome back, Hurricane, and thank you for welcoming me back. G emissive display tag. So I'll be able to find these displays for everything. And if they exist, we're going to want to export those to different things. Yeah, it's about 8 in the morning over here on the West Coast, so I don't know what time that is in Germany. Not too bad. It's not like midnight or something. So what we want to do is we want to change it so we can export different displays nicely into these different places. Thank you for following Mono Rules. Yeah, it's always good to have more followers. I think that brings us up. How many followers do we actually have now? 111. So we are going to want to find the displays for. Let's clean up some of the stuff that we were messing with earlier. And oh man, I really should. Yeah, let's start making some of these things into global variables. So we have the G master camera peg name, or master camera name, and we're going to want the master camera peg name. We're getting all the followers. soon will be the most popular channel of all time. As long as the most popular channel is confined to the most popular channels that are within the boundaries of my house in the West Coast. Alright, so camera position, all that stuff we need. Master camera name and master camera peg name. And I really should refactor like this whole damn script at some point here, because this is just ugly. We got this one function here that's literally what, 714. Yeah, it's literally like a 400 line function, which is just abysmal. Like, you can't maintain code like this. So I've really got a pretty dirty house going on here with this code. And that's kind of biting me with not being able to work very easily on it and fix stuff. So we need to figure out a way to export these displays nicely. So it's basically somewhere right inside of here, because we've got our export handler, and we're going to have to render the emissive display, just all the displays. That's gonna happen. So we call set render display. We set the resolution on that render display. Trying to look if there's anything. We can actually set the resolution that we're actually rendering at, and that can be different than the scene resolution. Interesting. So what we could actually do here is we might be able to render like a normal map, but render it at a separate resolution, right? Like, we could have a different resolution for the normal maps, which could save space if we wanted to. And I've got a lot of stuff in here for just, yeah, frame prefixes and our resolution stuff. It's all here. I've got to read over it. It's been a little while since I've actually looked at all this code. So we have an export handler. And the export handler, we give it a context, which is all this stuff. So we have like the frame prefixes and all that sort of. Because we're going to need to call, like, we've got the render display. And what we actually want is not the render display, but like we want the animation name, and we want to discover the render display based on it. So we're actually also going to add in 2 variables here for this render, and it's going to be like render the things if possible, and we'll probably do something later about that. Alright, cool. So we're going to call this render display stuff here, and we're going to pass in just the name of the animation, and we can get rid of this stuff here. We're passing in true for all the renders. We'll calculate the render display down here where we actually use it. Alright, so we need to break this apart here. So we need to make the export folder, like that's just true. Okay, I need to find a way to break up this code nicely. And it's kind of not really set up for this sort of thing at the moment. So I'm trying to read it, because I didn't write this code. I copied it out of some other Harmony scripts, so a lot of this is not how I write code. So I have to kind of figure out exactly where everything is. It's like we got an export handler, which actually handles the export, and then we've got this generate texture context from the texture atlas from the context. So it's kind of like this. Everything that's within the scope here, starting with the context, is this sort of stuff. And we actually call render on everything. And then I'll render that. So we kind of want to break some of this stuff up. Into something that's like, oh, prepare export folder. We want something like export sprites, then we want like export normals, and then we want export emissives. And we basically want this sort of thing to, like, where is this actually? going at the moment. Characters, fatsack, and then it's going into frames dash Dashkin, and then the name of the actual thing should be like air1 game, and then blah. So what we want, and then what is this export animation to JSON is, do we actually use the context? Yeah, we use the context sprite sheet elements to write out a file which has all the stuff in it. These are all animation frames, and we've got our animation data. So if we look at our actual file, that we're exporting and then importing, we've got like all these frames with all these sprite sheets and images. We have, and then metadata is all the stuff that's associated with it. So what we actually want to do is this. Yeah, we'll do like if so we can actually pass in null for this thing, and the context.json file name will work. Okay, so export animation to JSON is fine. So we want like export, and then we're gonna want like the display name. So we want we're gonna run like the render display, and we're going to want, I guess, maybe the animation data for it as well. And for like these guys, it's going to be like, we're going to want the normal display. And the emissive display. So it'll be the same thing, but we'll pass in null for animation data. It's like this is the data that we should attach. So we should have sprite sheets, and then so we should kind of change this to sprite sheets. And this should be like normals, and this should be emissive. And we're just calling like export display with stuff. So this is all the dir stuff. Export folder, scenery map, project path. If it does not equal alright. We're going to want the actual master export directory. We're going to set that to this guy. Alright, so we need a function called like prepare export folder. And we're going to return if it was successful. And we're going to have it like take in a directory. So it's going to be like if not prepare export folder return false, and just like log out like message log.trace failed to prepare export folder. We're going to take all this stuff here and everything right here. Context export folder, we have sprite sheets. So let's see, we need to clear out a lot of different directories here. Alright, so we're going to remove the normals, emissives, and all that stuff. We're going to make the export folder if it doesn't exist already. So that's going to prepare that folder. So what we're going to do is now we need to grab everything that's in here and this is going to be a export display function. called to export a specific display. We're going to need to pass in the pass stuff in. All right. So we're going to want the display name. We're going to want the we do need the animation data for stuff, but we need like the animation metadata. This is going to be the sheet type and then metadata. And down here, we're passing in the metadata for this thing. Alright, so the resolution name is actually going to be this sheet type. Export folder spritesheets.xml. Master export directory. So we'll need the export root. Frames Dashkin sheet root frames folder sheet underscore SR1. The resolution folder is the resolution name, which is going to be the like game or normals or whatever. There's sprite sheet XML file name. So why is this like hard coded here with the sprite sheets XML for every single one of these things? Oh, that's just kind of silly. Alright, well I think this will work. We need to actually grab like all the displays though and see if they exist. So we need to grab all the displays, and we need to see if they exist. What we're going to do here is we're going to have a function does display exist, and we're going to see a display name. And we can just say like if render emissives and does display exist, emissive display, and then we could just do that again for the render normals. Alright, and I'll have like rendering completed and all that stuff. Alright, so then we'll do all these things. Generate texture atlas, spreadsheet file name. Is it inside this generate texture atlas thing? I like how we have this uppercase just generate texture atlas function, which isn't in JavaScript, it's somewhere else. Alright, so we want generate texture atlas, and that's going to actually generate all of the it's going to take the rendered frames, because we rendered the whole scene out, and it's going to create a texture atlas from all of the rendered frames. And this is like some crazy function, infinite spreadsheets though. Yeah, alright, so yeah, it throws everything inside of the folder called sprite sheets. So what we also want is like a we want to be able to rename that folder. So we need to do some work here in order to make this actually not just blow over all of our stuff. Because if it throws everything to sprite sheets, I definitely don't want that. I want some sort of hierarchy there with generated stuff. And I'm just cleaning up this script a bit just because I can. So, do I want to change it so everything is like normals / sprite sheets? I don't want to do that. I'd rather have it just export to where I want it to export. Kind of sucks that the generate texture atlas takes a folder to put stuff in as opposed to something else. Like, well, actually, because this thing refers to, we're actually using this image path to discover the sprites inside of our other scripts, so I can just actually suffix this stuff with like export type. I can do like export folder plus / plus export type, and then our generate texture atlas can just be called with the sheet type. And maybe this will actually just work right now. Let's see if it does. Let's watch everything explode. What happens if we don't catch these errors? Do we get anything that makes any sense whatsoever? So I'm not happy with some of this. Get out of the way, Spotify, Jesus Christ. I'm trying to use shit. Can't find variable context line 1343. Alright. So this is basically saying your export route is not what we expect and all that. So export folder should be a plus. There's sheet type, animation data, and the name of the animation. I think there's a close UI function. Yeah, so we need to actually call this close UI function if there's a horrible error. Yeah, so I'm just fixing a whole bunch of stuff. Sorry I'm not talking a whole lot. I'm just kind of thinking about what I'm doing and all that. Once that's export animation. This is just too big of a damn file. Look at this, we're like, I'm just getting rid of some code and then all of a sudden I'm finding like none of this crap matters. Well, let's again actually start messing with it and see what we can find. 1381. Well, that certainly should have. Rah, rah, rah. 1381, whatever. I actually want to fix the error handler first, because the error handler should like actually close this dialog instead of like needing this crap here. Like it actually did, like error closing dialog and all that stuff. That's ridiculous. Why do we have to close the damn dialog to advance our UI control exec? I guess it's this export callback, which has an error inside of it. So let's try to fix this error callback to start with, because I definitely want that UI to close. That is much better. Alright, 1387. Now it'll actually, actually pop up an error message instead of Adam sitting there like, is it broken or is it working? That's always the worst thing. Be like, is it fucked and I just don't know it, or is it still doing what it should? So it's saying master export directory doesn't exist. That's because it's export root. Can I clear the log? Let's look it up in code real quick. Having good error messages can be really difficult though. So let's see, message log doesn't have anything on it as far as I can tell. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to print out what because I'd like to clear the message log. Let's see, it's got message log has destroy, delete later, trace, debug, set debug. Yeah, so it doesn't actually have a like a clear message log. That's unfortunate that it doesn't have a clear, because I'd like to be able to wipe the message log on start or something like that. It's kind of unfortunate. Can't find 1357 context. Alright. $14.39. Set render display to render display doesn't exist. Yeah, that makes sense. Undefined fat sack, undefined sprite JSON. What? I think this is it. We'll experiment. IR1? What?